So when you first arrive on the scene and you see all this, do you have occasion to speak with Agent Sands?
I did.
Okay. And what do you normally do when you arrive at a homicide scene generally?
So in order to understand the scope of the scene and what's going to be needed to properly examine the crime scene, we have to know a little bit about what happened. And what we normally do is called an initial briefing. We'll meet with a case agent or perhaps a requesting agency, a representative thereof, and talk with them about what the case needs, what's going on, and what the circumstances are, so we can make some determinations early on about what we need.
Okay. Did you have that kind of a briefing?
We did.
And can you tell the jury what, if any, physical things you did in terms of measurements and photographs to initially assess the scene?
So one of the very first things we do at any crime scene is to go ahead and take photographs. Those photographs serve as documentation of the scene as we found it. And that's before we start manipulating anything in the scene. We'll go ahead and take those pictures. So again, we find things as we determine. Now, we can't always say that we're going to go into a scene and things haven't been touched or moved, because we don't generally respond to scenes first. But we will document them as we find them, as we respond.
Okay. And so would it be fair to say that's kind of like an overview of the scene?
Correct.
Okay. Do you subsequently take far more detailed photographs?
Yes, ma'am. We generally start at overall photographs, which would depict the scene, the overall scene where the incident took place, and then we'll move in and photograph other things, be it a victim or individual items of evidence.
Did you do both of those in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you give us a rough idea of approximately how many pictures you took?
I believe on the initial scene it was 111, right around there.
Okay. And did you subsequently take additional photographs?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay. In total, do you have any idea how many photographs you took in connection with this case?
It was
do you need to...
not exactly, but it was more than 700.
Okay. So more than 700 total pictures?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And clearly, have I asked you to bring all 700 pictures to show you?
No, ma'am.
Okay. But are those available?
Yes, ma'am.
And they were made available?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, specifically, do you know how long after the body was first located that you responded, if you know?
I don't know right offhand. I understand that the body was discovered late that evening, and then we received a call after the Liberty County Sheriff's Office investigators had a chance to respond and do their initial evaluation and decide to request us for assistance.
Do you know who the agent in charge of the Liberty County Sheriff's Office side of the investigation was?
The investigator, to my knowledge, it was coordinating from their side. They had a lieutenant there, Tracy Jennings, but investigator Jack Frost was the one that was assigned to the case, from my understanding.
So he was their lead case agent at Liberty County?
That's my understanding, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And can you explain to the jury what evidence placards are?
Yes, ma'am. They're just the markers that you might see, and they're almost generic at this point to denote a crime scene, but if you ever see the little yellow tents that have black numbers on them that we place on the ground to denote where evidence items are located, we use those for a couple of reasons, but the primary reason is just to show spatial relationships in photographs between where items of evidence were located, and then also to provide those items with a number for reference later on.
How many crime scenes, we're talking first about the decedent's remains, how many crime scenes did you process with respect to her body?
Well, there were 2 in regards to the remains, and then additional scenes in regards to other aspects of the investigation, items that we believe to have been used in the scene.
So let me be more clear. Do you recall how many portions of her remains total were recovered?
There were 4 altogether,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
And how many of those did you process?
2.
Okay. And in those 2 that you processed, which 2 portions of her remains did you process?
I processed her torso and her left leg.
Okay. And with respect to those portions, do you know when those were? Obviously, you've told us December 2nd of 2022. Do you recall when the second date was that you processed the second portion of the body that you handled?
The left leg was located on December 5th,
okay.
2022.
Do you know if there was another leg recovered in between?
Yes, ma'am, there was.
Okay. And with respect to each of those occasions, was someone present, even though you didn't process those other 2 scenes, was there also a law enforcement agent present on those 2 other dates?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, yes, ma'am.
It just wasn't you.
It just wasn't
point.
me.
Okay. And do you know where those remains were transported after they had been processed and recovered?
Yes, ma'am. So in each county where you have a suspicious death like this one, the county coroner will respond and take those remains into custody and will be responsible for preserving them and transporting them to the lab for autopsy, medical examiner's office.
Okay. So anytime there's a suspicious death?
Well, yes, ma'am. The Georgia Death Investigation Act outlines some, but any suspicious death, unattended deaths, suicides, things of that nature, there'll be the coroner will respond and be responsible for making determinations about some of those, and then we're involved when autopsies are needed.
Okay. And were they, in fact, those remains of what ultimately is determined to be Mrs. Mindi Kassotis are recovered? Do they all go with the coroner to the crime laboratory eventually?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How do you know that those were her remains?
Well, I attended the autopsy of the remains, and they were eventually, we utilized some DNA techniques to...
And perhaps this sounds foolish, but was
I remember a lot of these body parts were found an hour away from where they lived in Savannah, Georgia, out in a really rural area, woodsy area. So we're hearing all of that unfold.
Yeah, it's so grisly. On one end, you're thinking about it, but then also it's a puzzle. They have to figure out who this is.
Right.
Like, they had no idea for an extended period of time, and it's got to be hard to listen to for the jury.
For sure. But fascinating to see the behind the scenes of this police work, of how they put it all together. Let's get to our break. When we come back, we'll hear more from this GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigation agent, on the stand. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae along with Ted Rollins. Before we get you back into that courtroom where we're following the case in Georgia, we do have an update out of Florida where another live trial is underway for us here at Court TV. And this one, the revenge mom murder trial.
Prosecutors allege that the defendant here, Sheila Agee, encouraged her son Keith to kill his ex-girlfriend back in August of 2023. Opening statements began today, this morning. Take a listen to a bit of the state's opening.
You don't come kill her, you a MF bitch. These are her words to her son, Keith Agee. And that's exactly what he did. It all started August the 11th in the morning, 2023. Keith Agee, her son, received a phone call from a health clinic. That health clinic told him he had tested positive for an STD. He begins texting his mother, who's at work in Pensacola at the Home Depot. He's blaming the mother of his child, Brooklyn Sims. To be a principal, the defendant does not even have to be there when the crime is committed. The evidence will show that Sheila Agee knew and intended for Brooklyn Sims to be killed. And through her actions and through her texts, she did incite, cause, encourage, assist, or advise Keith Agee to commit first-degree murder.
Of course, we watched Keith Agee in his trial. He went down and found guilty, and now mom on trial for the second time. Mistrial first time. Yeah, we'll get you highlights throughout that trial throughout the day. You can also stream that right now on courttv.com, the Agee trial, and Palmer, Montana. You can stream that one too. We've got a lot
of trials going on
this Tuesday. Yeah.
But we've got to take you back to Georgia. We are watching this case where the defendant, a former prosecutor, former lawyer, JAG officer Mindi Kassotis, is accused in the dismembered wife murder trial. Charged with the murder of his wife, Mindi. Her dismembered remains were found in multiple places back in December of 2022, and that's what we're hearing about inside of the courtroom.
Yeah, let's head back to the courtroom now. The crime scene expert still on the stand. Let's go back in.
they were the remains of a human being?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ultimately, was her entire body recovered?
Yes, ma'am.
And what pieces would that comprise?
Her torso was located first, then her right leg, her left leg, and finally on the 7th of December, her head.
Can you tell the jury why you were not present for the other 2 days?
At the time, we had one of our other crime scene specialists leave to join a federal agency. So I was the only crime scene specialist assigned to our office at the time. Unlike TV, we don't get to work just one case at a time. So we had been working on this case and things were unfolding fairly rapidly. I live a couple hours away, so it was easier and quicker in this case for Agent Sands and some of the other agents who live closer to respond in order to take custody of the other parts that were found.
But there was someone from law enforcement there to do so, correct?
Correct.
Now, you indicated that there was more than one crime scene, and I was referring to the remains. Was there another crime scene that you also processed?
Yes, ma'am.
Where was that?
311 East 65th Street in Savannah, Georgia.
Okay, and why were you at that location?
This was after Mindi had been identified as the victim in this case, and the investigation had determined at that point that around the time that we believe she was killed, she and her husband Nicholas were living at that residence.